The cameras rolled at yes, but this was not reality TV. This was reality. In a crowded Flagstaff courtroom, years of love and betrayal and simmering anger exploded into the open. Christine's voice shook with authenticity. Janelle's binder was packed with proof, and Robyn's tears smudged defense and confession together. At the center was Kody Brown, once the glue that kept them all together, and now having to sit and watch his family come apart in the face of custody wars, inheritance feuds, and irretrievable words. The gavel was ready to come down, and nothing would ever be the same. Outside the courthouse, a chill Flagstaff morning held an odd combination of fear and expectation. News vans parked along the curb, satellite dishes inclined towards the heavens, and reporters gripped notebooks and microphones in the manner of weapons set to pounce. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Reality Recap. On the sidewalk, locals with curiosity, devoted sister wives enthusiasts, and paparazzi shoved to get close. And then the heavy, ornate doors of the courthouse swung open. Kody Brown walked in, blonde ringlets encasing his face. But this was not the smug polygamist the audiences had known for more than a decade. His shoulders were tense, eyes fixed straight ahead, and his customary grin was absent. It wasn't a TLC set. There were no producers to nudge the action. One step behind him, Robyn trailed. Her shoulders were stiff, her face wan under the fluorescent lights of the courthouse. She clutched a black folder to her body as if it were the only thing holding her erect. Her eyes were puffy, not from mascara streaking in Arizona's desert sun, but from a quiet hour of weeping the night before. In the back of the room at the petitioner's table, Christine Brown sat straight, her hands knotted in her lap. She was dressed in a black blazer over a sharp white blouse, the sort of ensemble that proclaimed she wasn't here for TV soap. She was here for conflict. Next to her, her lawyers sorted through a fat stack of legal papers with the deliberation of someone who knew exactly how this day would go. To Christine's right was Janelle Brown, the family's quiet powerhouse. On her lap lay a fat binder marked in large red letters, Custody and Estate. Its creased, dog-eared pages were a testament to having been studied hundreds of times in preparation for this moment. The Browns were gathered together at last beneath one roof. And that's when the tension broke. Whispers emerged and bounced off the ceiling of the high courtroom, hollow echoes. Camera lenses closed in, capturing every micro-expression. Christine's clenched jaw, Robyn's shaking lips, Kody's hard glare cast fixedly ahead to not glance at the women who were once his wives. The voice of the clerk broke through the hum. All rise. The judge appeared, a silver-haired man with glasses slipping halfway down his nose. He bore the weight of countless bitter family feuds, but even he faltered for a moment, recognizing this case. This was not another day in family court. This was the Brown family, and their secrets were about to be exposed to the world. The gavel came down, a sharp crack like thunder. "Sit!" the judge ordered, his voice even but weighted, as though he already suspected that no one would leave here untouched. Kody fidgeted in his seat, his attorney murmuring something in his ear. Robyn kept her eyes down, her hand on Kody's arm, only for him to brush it away without looking at her. Across from them, Christine's lawyer sorted out their notes, while Janelle looked over her shoulder at the back row where some of the Brown kids were seated. They were in little clusters, others strategically left seats between them. That alone told it all. From the outside, the muffled cries of protesters floated through. Some placards called for justice for Christine and the kids, while others supported Kody, labeling the case a media witch hunt. From the inside, the air was thick. The tension wasn't only between former spouses. It was a profound, unspoken cleave reality TV had teed up for decades, but never brought to the surface. Christine leaned in toward her lawyer, saying something that earned him a reassuring nod. Robyn's attorney fumbled through a stack of manila folders, obviously preparing for a long day. Janelle's knuckles went white around her binder. She had promised herself she would only say what she was told, but she knew she'd testify in a heartbeat. Kody sat stiff, breathing slowly and steadily. Occasional glances from his eyes strayed over to the press table, challenging them to print something he didn't sanction. But his grip was losing its firmness. deepening lines framing his mouth and a telltale tremble in his jaw gave away how tightly he was keeping it together. The judge cleared his throat to begin. This case, he stated, is a consolidated action on custody arrangements, marital and community property division, and related estate issues between Mr. Kody Brown and Mrs. Christine Brown, Mrs. Janelle Brown, and Mrs. Robyn Brown. All parties have received due notice, and the court will now hear arguments. It was official. The gavel of justice had fallen, and there would be no turning back. For an instant, all of the beaming photo opportunities, doctored family meals, and cringe-worthy yet optimistic confessional interviews were forgotten. Left in their place was gritty, unvarnished, and excruciatingly human. A man, 3 women, and what remained of a family once united by faith, now tied together only by court documents and lingering scandals. As the first lawyer stood to speak, the whole courtroom leaned forward. Out on the street, a reporter spoke into a live microphone. The Brown family trial has officially begun. Christine's lawyer was the first to speak to the court, a tall, quiet man whose voice contained firmness and calm. Strolling to the middle of the room as though he had performed this act time and time again, he didn't bother with pleasantries or thick legalese. "Your Honor," he started, courteous but full of conviction, "this isn't simply a matter of splitting assets or deciding custody. This is about years of emotional abandonment, shattered promises, and damaging choices that left irreparable harm. We are here today to see to it the children, the innocent ones in the middle, have a safe, stable, and healthy home." Christine's fingers dug into the table's edge. This was the moment she had anticipated, the moment years of unspoken suffering would be expressed at last. "Your client," the lawyer went on, nodding toward Christine, "came into this marriage with hope and trust. She accepted the plural family lifestyle, believing in equality and mutual love between husband and wife. What she saw, however, was the gradual elimination of her place, both emotionally and financially. While she took care of the children, maintained the household, and held up her end, she saw Mr. Brown's attention, resources, and love go elsewhere. This is not conjecture. We will have evidence, dates, financial documents, and testimony from witnesses to demonstrate how this change injured not only my client but the children as well." Kody's jaw clenched. His lawyer pushed a piece of paper across the table to him, but Kody refused to glance down. His eyes remained fixed on Christine's lawyer, as if challenging him to continue. And continue is precisely what happened. The lawyer started recounting certain events, skipped birthdays, canceled vacations, and the always promised dream house that never appeared. Every instant splashed into the room like a rock falling into stagnant water, ripples of unease spreading to all points. And then the more intimate ones, phone calls in the dead of night when Christine begged Kody to go to their child's school function, only to be informed he had something else in mind. Big family decisions taken without consulting her, impacting her children's education and where they lived. His tone remained calm, but Christine's shook when she did eventually speak. She leaned forward at the microphone and spoke to the judge. "I hoped," she started, "that even if everything was not perfect, that we could stay together for the sake of the children. But eventually it seemed like I was raising them by myself, as my husband was building a new life somewhere else. I remained for the children's sake, but it killed me. It killed them." The courtroom was filled with heavy silence. To her side, Janelle inched forward, hesitating over whether or not to speak. Her own lawyer, a woman with keen eyes and a measured, considered tone, rose to speak for the court. "Your Honor, my client's experience is reminiscent of much of what Christine has testified. Janelle did everything on her own for years for her household, providing for her children without regular emotional or financial support from Mr. Brown. She endured the neglect, assuming that it was only temporary, that reconciliation would ensue. It never did. When Janelle testified, her voice was lower, more even than Christine's, but just as heavy with the burdens of years. There were weeks, she explained, when I wouldn't see him. Not because of work, not because of emergencies, but simply because he just preferred to be somewhere else. I raised my children by myself. I managed the bills, the school pickups, the daily life. By myself. Eventually, I stopped waiting for him to have any actual part in our lives." Kody's hand clutched the arm of his chair. His attorney leaned forward once more to speak quietly, but Kody shook his head slightly, his lips compressing into a hard line. Christine's attorney returned to the podium. Your Honor, what we're looking at here is not an isolated lapse. It's a long-standing pattern. A pattern of favoring one home over another. A pattern that left children feeling abandoned and wives feeling replaceable. The result? Children trapped between two parents, financial instability in certain households, and a breakdown of trust so severe that only the courts can address it. Out of the gallery, there was muted movement. Some of the Brown older children shifted where they sat. A few had their heads lowered, reluctant to look their father in the eye. Their pain spoke louder than words ever could. Christine's attorney laid a pile of papers on the judge's bench, printed emails, text messages, and bank records of transactions that strongly favored one family over the others. These documents, he explained, will prove that while my clients and Mrs. Janelle Brown were fighting to save up enough money for simple home repairs, Mr. Brown was buying expensive goods and real estate for Mrs. Robyn Brown's family. We will prove that not only did this create an unsustainable imbalance, but also directly led to the emotional and financial abandonment my clients and their children suffered. The judge nodded slowly, turning page after page. He did not speak, but the conscientious slowness with which he turned every sheet was significant. The gavel fell once, not a decision, but a call for the proceedings to resume. Christine dropped her eyes, relief eddying with fatigue. Janelle sat upright, her face determined. This was just the start of what was going to be a day-long ordeal, yet for the first time in years, their complaints were being heard by someone who could make things change. Gingerly, Kody shifted toward Robyn across the courtroom. She leaned in to whisper something in his ear, but his expression didn't soften. Instead, it hardened. He could sense that his opportunity to reply was nearing, and when it arrived, the true tempest would erupt. The judge indicated the direction of the defense table. Mrs. Robyn Brown, you may take the stand. For an instant, Robyn didn't budge. The black folder was clutched so hard in her hand that the sheets of paper within were creased at the edges. Taking a heavy, shaky breath, she stood up and made her way to the witness stand, each step increasing in weight. She adjusted her floor-length skirt as she sat, and threw a brief look at Kody. He nodded ever so slightly to her. Not a nod of comfort, but one of preparedness. The bailiff moved forward. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes, Robyn answered quietly. Her attorney, who wore a crisp blue suit, moved forward at a deliberate pace. Mrs. Brown, I know this is hard, he started, but I want you to explain to the court in your own words who Kody Brown is. Robyn hesitated, taking a breath, her eyes reflecting the light in the courtroom. Kody's not perfect, she said, her voice shaking, but he's a good man, a good dad. He's made errors, we all do, but his heart has never been in the wrong place. Her eyes moved toward the judge. We've been under attack for years because of our choice to live differently. People see our family as a TV spectacle, a lifestyle to judge, but they don't see the late nights when he's talking with the kids, or the hours he's driven just to be there for a school event. Christine's lawyer shifted in his chair, but Robyn's attorney quickly pressed on before any interruption. You've heard allegations today, serious ones. You have favoritism, financial imbalance, and neglect. What do you say in response? Robyn's lips compressed before she spoke. It's not favoritism, she said. It's survival. When I legally married Kody, it was in an effort to secure the family, to have one household with lawful protection in the event something had occurred. It wasn't about it coming at the expense of anyone else, but somehow it became this. Her voice shook as a tear rolled down her cheek. People thought I wanted to replace them, that I wanted Christine and Janelle stepped aside. That's not true. I wanted us to work together. I wanted harmony. But the world, and even segments of this family, made that impossible. Christine's eyes narrowed, but she remained silent. Janelle fidgeted uncomfortably, her fists clenching the red binder in her lap. Robyn's attorney retreated to let her go on without prodding. "I know they're mad at Kody," she stated, her voice breaking. "I know they feel like he left them. But I also know he's been trying to make it right. To keep together what's still intact of this family, it's killing him. The stress, the guilt, the constant arguing, it's destroyed him too. Nobody wants to see that. It's convenient to make him out to be the bad guy." A few whispers swept through the gallery, quickly stilled by the bailiff's pointed glance. Christine's attorney at last stood up. "Mrs. Brown," he said calmly, "you assert that your marriage to Mr. Brown was to keep the family safe. Then why is it that once you had become his lawful wife, considerable assets, houses, properties, cars, began to flow into your name? Even assets from other homes?" Robyn's eyes widened. "That wasn't my choice by itself. I talked about it with Kody. We did it for legal purposes." "Legal purposes?" the attorney responded, his voice tinged with sarcasm. "Or consolidating control?" Her tone rose higher. "No, that's not fair. You're misconstruing." The lawyer approached, pushing a sheaf of papers across the witness stand. "These are public documents, Mrs. Brown. Deeds and bills of sale, transfers of accounts, all within 2 years following your legal marriage to Mr. Brown." "Can you tell me why houses where Christine's and Janelle's families resided were refinanced or transferred into accounts in your name?" Robyn gazed down at the documents but did not take them. Her voice shook. "Because Kody said it was the safest thing to do, and I trusted my husband." The room fell so silent that the soft buzz of the fluorescent lights overhead seemed to ring out. Christine sat perfectly still, although a flash of vindication danced in her eyes. Janelle stared straight ahead, not even giving Robyn a glance. Robyn's lawyer moved promptly to interrupt. "Your Honor, my client has already stated that she acted as she thought was best for the family. She is no money expert. She took advice from her husband. But it was done. Those documents had changed the mood in an instant. Emotional pleas now rested in the shade of pallid, unassailable facts." Robyn continued, her tone mollifying. "Of course, they believe I did take something from them. What I took, accidentally, was their trust. And I don't know how to return it." Kody clenched his jaw but did not look at her. The judge leaned forward. "Mrs. Brown, thank you for your testimony. You may step down." Robyn returned to her seat, avoiding any glance toward Christine or Janelle. Her hand shook as she placed the black folder back on the defense table. Kody leaned in and whispered something. She gave the faintest nod in reply. The judge shifted focus. "We will now address custody matters." The storm of feelings yielded to a heavier, denser front, the most serious and potentially ruinous phase of the trial. His words had gravity as he spoke to the room. "These are custody issues regarding the minor children of Mr. Brown and the plaintiffs." The air within the courtroom grew heavy with tension. This had nothing to do with assets, houses, or shattered trust. This involved children, and through all the acrimony up to this point, nothing was capable of hurting quite like this. Janelle's attorney stood first, proceeding to the middle with the calculated assurance of a person armed with a loaded gun, one of truth, not force. She stood in front of the judge. "Your Honor, my client has nurtured her children for most of their lives. Mr. Brown has been away for extended periods, not out of compulsion, but by choice. We will demonstrate through testimony his inconsistency and favoritism towards some households has inflicted severe emotional damage to the children." Janelle remained still, binder still on her lap, allowing her lawyer to address the court. The attorney stood before the jury. Wallowing in these exchanges of text between Mr. Brown and his children, legally obtained, are not only evidence of bad communication, but at times outright dismissal. I won't read them all, but here are a few examples that set the tone. Her voice remained steady as she read, "Dad, are you attending my game Friday?" "No, can't, busy. You haven't attended one this year." No response. A murmur passed through the gallery. Even some journalists shifted uneasily. Kody's lawyer protested, claiming the texts were out of context, but the judge permitted her to proceed. Then a conversation between Kody and his teenage daughter was produced. I don't know why I bother talking to you anymore. You always choose them over me. That's not true. Yes, it is. Everyone sees it. Janelle's lawyer closed the folder. Your Honor, this isn't a father who's been mischaracterized. This is a father whose own behavior has pushed his kids away. Christine's lawyer stood up, his tone more emotionally charged. We heard allegations of favoritism and neglect today. But when those allegations come from the children themselves, they cannot be ignored. He gestured toward the back of the courtroom. A small figure stood. Christine's youngest daughter, slight for her age, wearing a plain dress and an anxious expression. She walked to the stand, every camera in the room following her. The bailiff swore her in. The judge leaned forward, his voice gentler than before. You may speak when you're ready. Her voice was a whisper. I just want everyone to stop fighting. The simplicity of her words hit home like a hammer blow. A reporter in the front row put her pen down. Janelle's eyes brimmed with tears. Even the judge's face softened for a moment before he cleared his throat. Christine's attorney's voice softened. Can you describe for us what it's like when your dad doesn't show up at things that are important to you? The girl's fingers drummed at the edge of her sleeve. It feels like he doesn't want to come. Like he has something better to do, though I know that's not really I just hate it when it feels that way. A few feet away, Christine placed a hand over her mouth to suppress her feelings. When the girl descended from the stand, the atmosphere was thick. Even Robyn remained frozen, her eyes brimming, though she averted her face from the table of the plaintiffs. Christine's attorney continued. Your Honor, this is not a custody battle. This is children requesting stability and love. My client does not want to take them away from their father. She wants to protect them from more promises unfulfilled, more hurt, more disappointments. We think primary custody is the only solution. Kody's attorney stood up then, walking to the middle of the courtroom with slow steps. Your Honor, no one is perfect. We all make errors. What is occurring here is an emotional tale being employed in an attempt to twist the truth regarding a very intricate family situation. Mr. Brown has numerous children scattered between numerous homes. It's humanly impossible for him to be everywhere at one time. That doesn't mean he doesn't love any of them any less. He pointed to Kody. This is a man who has put family at the center of his life, giving financially and personally to support all his children. Yes, some things were lost. Any big family suffers that. But to paint him as neglectful is not only a disservice, it hurts the kids who still adore and look up to their father. Kody finally spoke up, his tone low but even. I have failed occasionally, but I love all of my children. I've done the best I could under conditions that would break most men. It was his first serious utterance since the trial started. Though there was a note of sincerity to his words, there was also one of unmistakable defensiveness. Janelle's attorney refused to stand down. Your Honor, we're not disputing if Mr. Brown loves his children. We're disputing if he's given them the stability, presence, and equity they require. The evidence indicates the response is no. The judge leaned back in his chair, his face inscrutable. I will take all of the testimony and evidence under advisement. We'll start with closing arguments on custody before addressing the issue of division of estate. The bailiff announced a short break. Folks stood and yawned, but no one walked over to Kody or Robyn. Christine and Janelle edged out silently, taking deep gulps, as if the previous hour had been an endurance race. Inside, Kody sat alone for an instant, gazing at the vacant bench. His hands were folded in front of him, knuckles white. Cameras lurked outside, but his thoughts were on the imminent verdict. The courtroom filled once more. The judge's chair stood empty for a moment before the side door creaked open. He stepped in, black robe swinging slightly. Attention! The bailiff bellowed, and the room rose as one. The judge sat down, slipping on glasses. His face gave nothing away, his voice tranquil. You may be seated. Kody shifted in his seat. Christine leaned forward. Janelle sat stiffly, red binder in position like a shield. Robyn's hands were folded so tightly in her lap that her knuckles were white. This has been a long and emotionally involving case, the judge started. I have given consideration to all the testimony, examined all the evidence, and balanced the best interests of the minor children. Although the court is aware of the non-traditional family dynamics, there have been some patterns that have developed over time that need to be addressed. The room appeared to close in on itself as he addressed custody. Mrs. Christine Brown shall have primary physical custody of her minor children with Mr. Brown, with scheduled visitation for Mr. Brown. Mrs. Janelle Brown shall have primary physical custody of her minor children, same visitation schedule. The court encourages all parents to attempt cooperative co-parenting, but stability in the homes of the mothers has been found to be in the best interests of the children at this time. Christine breathed slowly, eyes closing. Janelle nodded marginally. Kody gritted his jaw, wordless. Robyn shifted, looking at him reassuringly, but he did not take his eyes from the bench. The judge moved on to the division of common and marital property. The court has examined voluminous records of household-to-household transfers of property, bank accounts, and household spending. Although some steps were taken for legal or practical convenience, they amounted to an unbalanced allocation of resources across households. He stopped, gaze fixing on Kody. Some properties now owned by Mr. and Mrs. Robyn Brown will be redistributed. These include the Coyote Pass lots initially assigned to Mrs. Christine Brown and the home of Mrs. Janelle Brown. There will be financial realignments so each party gets their fair share of equity and property earned during the two marriages. Kody's face flushed deep red. Robyn's eyes were wide with surprise, her head shaking incredulously. Christine's lawyer didn't flinch, his face holding a calm expression, but the slight twitch at the corner of his mouth betrayed satisfaction. Janelle's lawyer wrote a hasty note, pushing it down the table to her client. The judge went on. And finally, I must consider the children's emotional health. Although this court cannot require love, it can enforce routine. I am directing family counseling for all minor children concerned to be organized and funded by both parents together. And that was it. The tears welled up in Christine's eyes, not of sadness, but of relief at knowing that some healing process had been initiated. The judge raised his gavel. This decision is final. I demand all parties to acquiesce immediately. We are adjourned. The gavel came down hard on the block, the staccato crack resonating through the silence of the courtroom. No one stirred for an instant. The verdict stood suspended in the air, heavy and irreversible. Christine rose up first, her lawyer by her side. She did not look in Kody's direction. There was no necessity. Her head held high and tears still on her face, she walked firmly towards the door. Janelle followed, taking a moment to gaze at Kody. There was no malice in her look, just exhaustion. It had been decades of silent resistance, and this was what it had culminated in. She was not going to spend it on bitterness. She departed, binder still clutched in her hand. Kody stayed seated a moment longer, his hands gripping the table's edge. Robyn leaned in close. "We'll fix this," she whispered, her voice tense and trembling. Kody didn't reply. When he finally stood, his gaze swept across the nearly empty courtroom. The press was already slipping out, eager to rush the verdict to the waiting world. Outside, chaos erupted. Reporters hurled questions. "Christine, what's your reaction to the verdict?" "Janelle, what are you going to do with your inheritance?" "Kody, was this equitable?" "Robyn, did you feel singled out?" Christine strode past with no word, her attorney holding her back from the cameras. Janelle gave a hasty courteous on comment before slipping into a waiting car. Kody came last with Robyn, attorneys surrounding them on either side. Cameramen snapped wirelessly, every tick of his jaw, every flash of her flushed eyes. "This is a long way from over," Kody grumbled to a reporter who met his gaze, "not by a long way." But as he and Robyn got into his car, the reality dawned on them. The court had ruled. The domination he used to have over his large family, over the homes, the acreage, even the patterns of his children's lives, was fractured. In the car, Robyn stared out the window, her reflection softened by the afternoon light. "We'll get through this," she murmured again, almost as if talking to herself. But both knew the reality. The family they had once presented to the world no longer existed. Back inside the courthouse, a clerk began stacking the Brown case files, pushing them into the archives. To everyone else, it was simply another matter closed. But for the Browns, it was the closure of a chapter years in the process of creation, a chapter full of love, of betrayal, ambition, heartbreak, and now a legal order that would irreparably change their course. And in the stillness that ensued, the reverberation of the gavel continued, chilling reminder that, according to law, love alone could never undo the harm done.